Hi there, I'm Des.
And I'm Tim, and together Des and I head up the men's ministry Momentum Australia.
Momentum has multiple functions, but primarily our aim is to help men to succeed in life, to do life better.
We run a weekly radio show that goes all around Australia where we talk about anything and everything that relates to men.
And you know, we encourage men to do life in community, to do life with other men where we can be accountable, we can be welcomed, we can be open and honest about what's happening in our world.
We'd love you to have a look around our website. That's momentumaustralia.org. There you'll find a bunch of resources to help you on your journey and all of our previous episodes and topics.
We thank you for your interest in Momentum Australia, and we hope you enjoyed this video today.
Okay, welcome to this week's Momentum. It is so good to have you tuning in wherever you may be. And you know what? With 45 stations, I think it is nowadays, taking the show around Australia. And I think we've sneaked into Tasmania or snook into Tasmania, whatever the word may be. And 62 countries, I think, now listening to Momentum. Yeah. Hey, you could be in one of those. It doesn't matter wherever you are. We are so grateful to have you here tuning into our little show that's about 3 years old now and reaches men all around the world, which Des is pretty mind-blowing, mate. For when you and I first started back in 21, just a bit of a hope and a dream and a prayer, wasn't it, really?
In fact, we were given good advice not to go ahead, in fact, by certain individuals. Anyway, now here we are, 165 shows later, which is not amazing, 165 shows. But guys, I just want to remind all of you that, you know, we've got an amazing website, which is momentumaustralia.org. Lots of useful information. You can give us feedback. We love getting feedback, positive and negative, you know, because it helps us improve and change the way we do things. So all our podcasts are all on there, and you can search for them by topic, by speaker, by whatever. So it's really cool. And also you can access our YouTube channel, which is Momentum for Men. If you go into Spotify, Amazon, all those podcast platforms, every week we have taken some of our old shows and taken the video and planted it so you can actually see Tim as well as hear him, which is an amazing thing in itself. And we talked last week about our Careline, and we're not frivolous at all about our Careline. It is so important to us. Guys, don't do the conversation, don't do life on your own. If you don't have somebody around you who you feel safe with, who you can have a conversation with, please reach out to our Careline, 1-800-000-MEN. Easy to remember, 1-800-000-636, 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., brought to us by our friends at Careline Connections, who are a ministry in their own right. It's really cool.
Yeah. And look, I think at the moment, the last stats were we get about 50 calls to our Careline every month, which is wonderful. But that's 50 guys who potentially are struggling. And look, you may know somebody in your world who you are supporting through a journey. You may know somebody in your world who actually you're pretty close to, but you have no idea what's actually happening in their life because you've not really ever spoken on that level. And again, Momentum really exists to bring awareness to certain things, but also to encourage you to connect as men, for us to connect, not just on a surface level about the footy and the whatever's happening on the surface level, but to go, hey, checking in. It's essentially, are you okay? Every single day with your mates. It's just asking the question, going, are you okay? If not, how can I help you? And I may not be able to help you, but I can point you in the direction of somebody who can. And if you want to reach out to us, momentumaustralia.org, or of course, please call the Careline, 1-800-000-636. All right, last week we started a conversation with our special guest, Pastor Steve Wickham, about being a good and godly husband. We didn't get to the godly part. I'm sure we'll do that in this week's show. But Steve, welcome back to Momentum, mate. It was a great show last week. Thanks for your time and thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks, Des.
All good.
I mean, we started unpacking this, and I mean, it is a huge topic, let's be honest. And as we said last week, all three of us on this call, sadly, we've had more than one marriage. So we've learned some stuff, you know, the hard way. We're not sitting here professing that we've got it all together either. But what we are saying is that, you know, along the journey, through some of our own mistakes and through learning and gleaning and doing some work, we've learned some stuff, and we're still on that journey. But we just want to help men because, I mean, let's be honest, marriages struggle. Christian marriages struggle, and men struggle within a marriage to some degree. So these sorts of conversations, Steve, and you would know from your counseling space, I mean, they're really crucial to have as men. We can't just look at the facade of, I see my wife and kids, you know, in church every week and everything looks hunky-dory and rosy, because the truth is often it's not.
Well, they just had an argument on the way into
on the
church.
way to church.
And that so often happens, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It really
yeah.
does.
Yeah, it
One
does.
of the things we used to pray for at the previous church that I was at was every single, on the way in, people, early before you start the church service, you'd be aware that there might be stress and tension in the household. And so
Yeah.
you don't make assumptions and there is the front of stage, back of stage. We all kind of
Yeah.
want to put a persona out there.
Yes.
And that's fine, but we're just really interested in the home and all of that.
And again, we will just say, look, there's a time and a place. Let's be honest, right? I mean, sometimes you do just have to go, we're going to park this and we're going to do church, and then we'll come back and, do that.
Have the argument later.
We'll revisit this afternoon when the kids are having their afternoon nap. I mean, in all seriousness, though, there is a time and a place for men to get honest and vulnerable. We need that, and particularly if it's the marriage space, because rather than the marriage blow up, hey, let's go and have the conversation. Let's see if we can actually rectify and fix this thing before it ends up as another divorce statistic. And last week we looked at 10 tips to being a good husband. I think let's just bounce off that and let's start the show at this space. How do you think we know, Steve, that we are hitting our strides as a husband? How do you think we get the feedback that tells us that we're doing okay in this space?
Well, hopefully our wives can be honest with us, and really honest, and feel safe enough that they can do that. And
That's
then
key.
we're getting feedback that, maybe not perfect. My wife often refers to me as a husband with potential, which is good. But she's also, there's a great deal of truth to that. It's wonderful if a wife, if our partners can say to us, yeah, you're not perfect, and there's things I would love you to work on and that sort of thing. But it's so long as we can hear that, and that they have actually space to be able to say that, and for us not to blow up or not to resent that sort of thing. There needs to be space for honesty in marriage.
I mean, sorry, Des. I mean, that's a really big thing that you just said as an opener. I mean, because let's be honest, and we touched on this at the beginning of the last week's show, but let's just unpack that a little bit, because I think a lot of men would struggle with that. I mean, let's be honest. We can sometimes struggle with taking advice or suggestions or recommendations from our wives. And it is hard for all of us at times to hear feedback that is not necessarily negative, but constructive feedback that we may not be doing as well as we think we are. That's hard.
Yeah. And I think if we also watch for the signs of the things that are not being said, I think that's also important. Picking up of the things that maybe our wives would like to say, but probably don't feel like they can, or they're waiting for their moment. I think picking up what's not being said is probably more the issue.
That's an interesting one, Steve. And how would you say men would identify that their wife wants to say something to them but hasn't? How do you know? Is it the silent treatment? Is it what does that look like? Let's get
Yeah, it could be
practical.
the silent
How
treatment.
would I know? Sorry?
Yeah, it could be the silent treatment, definitely. Whenever anybody withdraws or whenever anybody's angry, or there's some sense of simmering resentment or that sort of thing. That's a very key sign. Yeah. So that we talk about signs and symptoms. You can see signs and behavioural. So you can see it in somebody's behaviour. You can see it in their body language, in their gestures. That is if you're interested enough and empathetic enough that you can see that. But the symptoms always have to come with the question. You need to ask the person. So, sorry, go on, Des.
So I was going to say it's also what they don't do. It's more than just what they do. It's what they don't do. So if they normally are affectionate and caring, and all of a sudden you feel that distancing and that holding back or not wanting to have a conversation, then it's a clear sign there's something not healthy.
Yeah. And that could also mean stress to the other person or other things that they've got on their mind or that sort of thing. So it's asking that, though, our wives those questions and being genuinely interested in their life.
Yeah, cool.
This is a bit of a how long is a piece of string kind of question, and I realize that. But Steve, I mean, if we were to regularly check in with our wives, right, rather than leave it until there's the silent treatment or she goes quiet or the physical affection stops and we're, oh, sweetheart, is there a problem? Like, how often do you think it is healthy, rather than it being like every day and every week, but But is there a good kind of time frame that we could kind of sit down once every month or once every 3 months or whatever it may be and just kind of check in with each other and go, hey, how am I doing? To each other. Is there a sort of recommended time frame for that?
I think it's probably more of a osmosis. It's more of a dynamic thing, that it's a daily. It's in the flow of our conversations. I mean, for me, with my wife, we'll probably have 2 or 3 conversations, 2-minute conversations on the phone every day. And it's even in that there's a chance for a bit of laughter. There's a chance for working out what the plans are for the day. But you're checking in with one another, and there are opportunities in every single interaction to show interest for the other, to show care, and so it's not on a daily. It's not it's all the time. It's every interaction. Yeah.
And you don't want it regimented, is what you're saying. It is spontaneous. It is part of how you do life together.
Yeah.
It's like us. I mean, we could have a conversation for 1 or 2 minutes. Any of us, we know each other. And so you'll have there'll be there's joy, there's humor, even in a 1 or 2 minute conversation.
Yeah.
It's all about connection. It's about connection, genuine connection.
I actually really love that. And I think that even could be like a bumper sticker. But I say that jokingly, but I think it's true, right? There's opportunity in every connection, right? To find that connection piece, or to just reconnect and check in with the other person. And I want to then perhaps keep the conversation moving forward to the top 10 things that we found on Google that might demonstrate that we are a good husband. The first one actually is that he has strong communication skills. And let's be honest, Steve, for some men, communicating on an emotional level that connects with a female is a real struggle.
Yeah. I think emotional intelligence, being able to sense where the other person's at, where we're at in the dynamic, being reflective enough in the moment, what's going on for me, is there anxiety that's interrupting this interaction. So it's actually being present in the interaction. That's super important. I mean, saying the right words, saying them the right way, conveying interest, all of these things. So it's a bit of it can be a tough one, but I think a lot of it comes from the heart. If we're genuinely interested in the other person, a lot of our communication, good communication, comes from that. But emotional intelligence is really a big one.
It is key, but it's interesting. I mean, you need to be deliberate in looking for what the issue is, and we're talking about emotional intelligence. We need to be deliberate in terms of understanding our partner, understanding the way they think, understanding what's going on in their world to enable us to have that emotional intelligence. But what would some guy who, maybe is in a relationship or has got a marriage where he doesn't feel he has that emotional intelligence, how can he equip himself with the skills needed to do that?
That's a great question, Des. I think mentoring right off the bat. I think there's such importance for men to have mentors and to be mentors. I think that's really important. So mentoring, coaching, counselling. I think there's a lot to be said for that. For understanding, where we're coming from, understanding the other person, their needs and interests. Yeah. So I think external help is a good thing. Being connected to good external helps.
And also having mentors. I mean, one of the things we talk about continually in Momentum is that, for us to grow as men, we need to have men that we can look up to as mentors in our world. The same thing's true in relationship. If you see a couple who've got a great relationship, watch them, study them, learn how they interact together, look how they laugh and are playful with each other. And that way you'll see how to get that skill. Yeah.
I'm just going to come off the back of that, Des, and say also, I mean, let's be honest, we live in an age now where information is everywhere and it's at our fingertips. And guys, if you are finding that this perhaps is an area that is not a strength for you, I mean, there's lots of videos on YouTube. There's lots of videos on social media. There are people, and again, I can't speak for YouTube, but I've needed to, over the last sort of 12 years, go on a whole journey of that, of being a better person myself. And exploring some of this stuff, because I didn't know this in my first marriage. I knew bits of, but I wasn't, I missed a lot of stuff. And I think for guys, if we are getting that feel from our wife that we are not quite there, rather than go, well, this is just who I am, go, well, okay, what can I do to take it upon myself to find a mentor, have a conversation with somebody, get an accountability partner, go on YouTube and start investigating some of this stuff and educating myself to be a better husband. And I think, that is at least something we can start with. You also mentioned this idea of being faithfulness in that as well. So just unpack that for us.
Yeah, I think faithfulness, certainly biblically, is a better word than loyalty. I think that, and it's beyond sexual kind of faithfulness. It's a trustworthiness. Is our partner, or are we, always safe, trustworthy? Can we be relied upon 100% of the time? And generally, we can get it wrong, but in the faithfulness side of things, we can get that right just about all the time. If our heart's in it, we're really connected, we're really committed to our partner, to our wife. Yeah,
absolutely. Commitment is such a key word because it affects everything else, doesn't it? To everything in the relationship. And the other one that sits alongside that is that yourself and your wife view each other as equals. And I guess traditionally that wouldn't have been the case because when I was growing up, my dad was the head of the household in that sense of the word. Whereas now, it is so important that the husband and wife see themselves as equal and make equal decisions and are involved in all aspects of raising the kids and so forth. And that's so key.
Very true.
Mm.
Yeah.
Steve, can you unpack that for us? Because I mean, like Des said, I mean, when we think about that, when we think about equality in the relationship and approaching that, not just respecting each other as equals, but then carrying the load of the relationship, providing into the relationship, investing into the relationship. Can you unpack some of those things for us?
This is oftentimes a make or break in relationships. And I would say the two terms that I like are egalitarian, complementarianism, and you'll find that in church settings. But to have a genuine egalitarian marriage, it's actually really up to the two partners really to negotiate how they want their marriage. There are no rules. There's nothing to say he can't do this or he can do this, she can't do this or she can do this. It's really important that they set the rules and that nobody has, the husband doesn't have power over the wife doesn't have power over the husband, and that there is a genuine mutuality about the marriage. I think that is deeply biblical.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Really cool.
Understanding the other person is crucial. Let's jump to number 5 though. And it kind of combines with number 6. He genuinely enjoys time spent together. And number 6 is you can't help but laugh and smile when the two of you are together. I mean, all of those kind of roll into one to go, do we actually enjoy being around each other?
Yeah, exactly.
And from our perspective as a husband, let's be honest, am I somebody who is good to be around? Or am I prickly because I've got stuff I haven't dealt with? Or do I bring all my baggage from work into the house at 7 o'clock at night when I walk home? And I'm really, it's like kids are looking forward to seeing you. And now they're like, oh, actually, Dad's really grumpy. Maybe. So I think there is a responsibility from us as husbands to go, am I able to laugh at myself, laugh at life at times, not be too serious about things? What version of me do people get when I walk in through the door or whatever it may be?
Yeah, and is my wife looking forward to me coming home? Is she really looking forward to spending time with me?
Yes.
And that's, sometimes our wives maybe not, we might be going through a phase of difficulty or, she's dreading us. Then that's not good. I mean, so we got to be honest about that. And
she wants you to take the kids. Wants you to take the kids and head out. She heads off to the bedroom.
But whether it's that kind of relief or whatever it is, when we come back and we're ready, we got our game face on, we're ready to go, we're ready to serve our kids, serve our wife, and
have fun. You had fun when you were going out together, so have fun now. Dude, go on dates. Take the kids out walking and laugh and joke, and because kids who grow up in a happy, friendly marriage will be much more successful in life, and that's a statistical fact.
Yeah. And we can choose
a
to make
massive
the
impact.
drudgery of life a fun thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's up to us. We can make the choice to make this boring thing or this hard work fun. You know, and that's a choice. You know,
That's right. So if you like sweeping up the garden and leaves off the grass or whatever it is, do it as a family. Do it together. Have fun doing it. You know, throw the leaves in the air, whatever it takes. Just have fun.
I think what you said there, Steve, is really crucial, and that actually kind of hit me a little bit. You probably saw my face when you said that. But does my wife look forward to me coming home? And I think if a lot of guys just sat with that for a second and went, and some would genuinely probably say, probably not.
Yeah, I've had times when my wife has definitely not looked forward to me coming home, and so that's where that comes from.
That's
really
I think it's sound advice.
But I think it's a great question. And you know what?
Yeah.
When we do, and you said, you know, when we rock up from work every day, and you know, it's a wife and or kids that we are coming home to, what am I bringing into the home when I come back? What thermostat am I setting when I walk into the home? Am I going to make it a really tense, miserable, horrible place where everybody's walking on eggshells? Or do I bring a lighter version of me because I managed to offload my workday in the car?
Yeah, you bring joy into the home as you walk through the door.
Huge. Huge.
Yeah.
Number 7, you feel he is your number one supporter. Number 8, and I love this too, he is willing to admit when he makes a mistake. Now, isn't that just a huge thing for a husband?
It is. And this is another make or break. And it's so biblical. I think of, you know, when Jesus says, get the log out of your own eye, that's the basis of a relationship. If we've got two people, we've got a husband and wife who are readily doing that, you've got an awesome marriage there, straight up.
Yeah. And it's not hard to say, look, I'm sorry, I didn't handle that well. You know, I could have done it differently. This is what I'll do next time. You know, it covers a multitude of,
and Des, I'm reminded of something powerful that happened for me when I'm learning, you know, how to be a single parent, you know, 20 years ago. The power of making an apology to our children, you know, my girls are 11, 8 and 5 at the time. And, you know, when I would get it wrong and actually to have the humility to sit with them and actually say, no, that's on Dad. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have reacted like that. I'm so sorry. And I will not do it again. We'll and actually that those sorts of apologies teach children justice. You know, that's how children have to learn justice from us, their dads.
And the art of humility in a family setting, the fact that you can say you're sorry and be humble about it and be humble about your world in front of your kids and your wife and so forth is so powerful.
Well, I think, and Steve, you and I have been on that journey, you know, where we've had to do some rebuilding with our kids, perhaps after divorce, and you too, Des. But I don't know your story specifically with your kids, but I will just say from my perspective, having had those conversations with my daughter particularly, has actually brought us closer. So rather than her looking at Dad like he's almost untouchable, he's, you know, we never hear the ability for me to soften myself and come to her and say, sweetheart, I'm sorry, I missed that. I could have handled that better. Blah, blah. It makes me a more approachable person generically for her. And what I'm loving now is, as she's an adult now, is that we have a close relationship because we've built that trust and that safety, and Dad is a safe person to come to, because we've had to have some of those conversations where I have had to apologize for my behavior.
That's intimacy, Tim. You know, that's exactly, you know, you've actually doing that. You've shown your daughter inside yourself, you know, intimacy, and that's gold. You know, that's such a precious thing.
The last one that we're gonna have time for, and there may be a quick question for you, Steve, but paying attention to the details of our wives' lives. And this is, you know, I mean, there's the joke, I was married to a hairdresser, and, you know, so every day there was, for my daughter as well, my daughter went out with a different hairstyle or a different color most weeks. You know, it was those little, and there's the joke again with the husbands, you know, the wife comes in with the new hair and he doesn't even notice, sorts of things. We're not painting men in a good light, but we joke about it. But what I am saying, it is for men to notice the details in your wife's lives, whether it is the hair, the nails, the dress, hearing some of the things that she's saying, and as we've talked about already, some of the things perhaps she's not saying, but picking up on the little details that show that you care, that you are genuinely interested.
Yeah, it's good.
And particularly the details that are important to her, the details that she wants us to observe. I know there are some things that I still don't observe in my marriage, but they don't have a big impact, and we have a bit of a laugh about those things. So they're not important to her, to my wife, but there are some details that are super important to her partners. And it's understanding which of those details we can't afford to miss.
Yes.
It's good.
Like, do you think you should ask them?
That's I think that's a great suggestion. And be open. Yeah, be open.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool.
Steve, let's just a couple of final thoughts for men listening. Some simple things generically. I mean, obviously there's a million different scenarios of people listening right now, but just we've talked through some things there that would indicate that, hey, we might be hitting our strides as a husband, but generically, Steve, the top sort of 2 or 3 things for men listening to go, hey, if you just apply these simple things generically, your marriage is going to improve. You're going to be a better husband. Yep. What do you think those things would be?
I think the most important thing, and this is not just for marriage, but all relationships. So if we apply this to our marriages, it's guaranteed that it's going to work in all of our relationships, and we'll actually have a successful life. And that is have the ability to look within, have the ability to reflect, to be able to see our own sin, to be able to see where we are going wrong, to admit our own faults. I think that is key. You don't want to take it too far to feeling ashamed about that. Actually, before God in relationship with God, it's a God blessed thing for us to be honest about that. And then we've got power if we need to apologize, to reconcile things. So we've got great power there. So that's I think the key one. Being a safe person and being and nurturing relationships with all people where we can actually hear feedback. People are not walking around on eggshells around us, and being a safe person, being a safe dad, safe husband, safe man. I think a lot of that comes down to being emotionally safe and being able to be vulnerable, being kind of not being ashamed of our emotions and being able to show our emotions as well. Being true to ourselves. The truth will set us free, as Jesus said. And there are probably a couple of things that I would say that are very, very powerful concepts in any man's life.
I think as well, and we can all agree on this call, having somebody perhaps a little older, and I know for Des that's really getting tricky for you now at your stage in life. But
Man, you said that on air. I can't believe that. That's crazy.
But having mentors in our lives, right, guys, who we can look at, whether it's in our church or at work or whatever, who we can look up to and go, hey, man, they look like, I can see that they're a good, you can see their marriage is working, gleaning from these guys. But Steve, putting on the spot as well, I mean, for guys listening, are there resources, books, things that you could recommend for guys, again, generically, where they can go to go, hey, look, I think I'm doing all right, but you've talked about a couple of things there I could really use some help in. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a plethora of resources. I mean, I would give a shout out to this book here. It's a book called Crucial Conversations. Now you'll find that book is really good around those high stakes, high emotions kind of conversations that none of us like to be in, whether we actually have to have that conversation with somebody or we need to, or we're in a position where we're on the other foot and we're receiving feedback, and it can feel brutal. Any of the Cloud and Townsend stuff, the relationships, the 5 love languages, and you'll find that the author of that book, Gary Thomas, I think it is, has got a whole series of 5 there's 5 languages of apology. There's a whole bunch of a series, and they're all good. But there's so many resources, and I think as men, if we can be readers and be open to learning, I think that is the key to all of this.
It's good. I think the love language, Steve, was actually Gary Chapman from memory. I think it was Gary Chapman.
Thank you for that correction, Tim. That's good.
Yeah. Well, man, that's really great. And look, it's been a great couple of weeks of conversation with our good friend and Pastor Steve Wickham on being a good and godly husband. And to some degree, we've only just scratched the surface. We had actually more notes that we could unpack and probably do a third show. But look, there is plenty in the last couple of weeks, and we'd encourage you once again to go back, have a listen to the podcast, and genuinely take notes and, be teachable, be open to this, because we all love the idea of having a great marriage. We as men have to take our part and do our bit and take responsibility for what we bring to the marriage. And we're encouraging you into that space to go, hey, we're not all there. There's always more stuff we can do. There's always more that we can learn and then apply to make sure our marriage is as happy for both of us as possible. And if you need to reach out to us, momentumaustralia.org. Again, the Careline 1-800-000-636. And it's been a great conversation with, of course, my good friend Des and Pastor Steve Wickham. Thanks for your time, gents.
All good. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim. Cheers.
Thank you for watching this week's show, and we hope you subscribe to Momentum so you can find out what's happening in the shows in the future.
Absolutely. And keep an eye on our website too. That's momentumaustralia.org. There you'll find all of our shows and a whole heap of resources to help you on your journey. That is momentumaustralia.org.
Until next time, keep moving forward
with Momentum.